Namaste. This is Chokalingam Palniyappan from Prakla Wealth Private Limited, Chennai. Today we have a wonderful guest with us, Mr. Ashutosh Bhargava from Nippon Mutual Fund, from Nippon India Mutual Fund. Earlier the name was Reliance Mutual Fund. Now the Japanese company Nippon Life has bought complete stake from Reliance. So now it is called Nippon India Mutual Fund, and it's one of the largest players in the mutual fund industry. They manage more than 228,000 crores of assets with 78,000 crores in equity alone. They are a publicly listed company, and you can buy their shares if you want. Anyway, so having said that, Ashutosh Bhargava is heading the equity research, for that 78,000 crores of investments. He and his team are providing the research capabilities to the fund managers and chief investment officers and others. Today is a special session in our show because mostly earlier we have discussed with the chief investment officers, the CEOs, and fund managers, etc., in our various interviews. But today I am going to bring another angle to it, which is the research side. They are the backbone of any equity mutual fund generally. So they play a very critical and important role. So let us hear from Ashutosh what they do on a day-to-day basis, how research is important, the difference between a retail investor doing his own research and professional people doing research. What is the difference? All those things Ashutosh will be able to throw us some light. He is heading equity research. In addition to that, he also manages about 4 to 5 funds, well-known funds. He is managing that as well. But however, today our angle will be more towards research. Anyway, welcome Ashutosh.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. And today is Ram Navami. Very good.
Greetings to all, and it's actually entirely my pleasure. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much. And generally, most of the viewers in the channel, as in YouTube, so most of the viewers are very basic people. They want to know, on a very basic level, because if you and me talk very technical, they may go away, run away. So generally, there are more viewers for basic concepts and basic ideas. So from that angle, I am approaching you today. Generally, for a non-finance person, a guy who has not done any major investments or who is not looking into day-to-day investments very deeply, tell us something about your day-to-day job in the field of equity research, in simple terms.
So a typical day involves, the start happens very early. You prepare for the morning meeting. It starts at 8:30, and for that you need to prepare, you need to read. So you have to share your thoughts with the whole team, what has happened overnight under your coverage universe. So clarifying any doubt that fund manager may have in the companies that you cover. The whole day, a typical day of an analyst involves doing a lot of reading, talking to company management, talking to experts, both or the independent expert as well as the sell side experts. And if at all they have to make any required changes in the models that they have to maintain for the fundamental research, and duly communicate any changes to the fund managers about any change in recommendation or price value gap that they identify under his or her coverage universe. So this is like a typical day, and obviously there is hardly a dull movement in the life of a research analyst.
Very good. So, and how does this research generally translates or helps equity mutual fund investors, generally equity, because today I think in India more than 9,000 crores of assets SIP amount is coming into equity mutual funds.
Yes,
so how this research helps mutual fund investors?
Essentially, sir, as a fund manager or as an investment team, our job is to identify price value gap wherever the stocks have some mispricings, and as a fund manager, we want to exploit those mispricings. So research actually act as a backbone on identifying those mispricing, and this is what research team do. They do extensive research across sectors and companies, and help the fund managers in not only identifying those gaps, but exploring them in terms of taking position or reducing position. So at the end of the day, investing is all about having a very strong research, and be ahead of the crowd, and you have to be ahead of the crowd in terms of exploiting those mispricing. Because as you said, it's a very highly competitive field. But without very, very strong dedicated research, I don't think any fund house can make a difference to their investor or to themselves. So I think this acts as a backbone to the entire fund management process.
Okay, in that, I mean, this is something unusual question I'm asking. Do you have something private to, information, or is it like publicly available information, or you talk to the particular management? How does this generally happen? Where are all the sources that you collect and do?
So it does not, none of the research team or analysts would have any information which is private to them. And these are all general publicly available information. The only thing difference is research analysts go out, do their lot of independent research, channel checks, talk to the sell side experts. In sell side also, a typical large cap company would be covered by 25, 30 analysts. You get a lot of wisdom and knowledge from them. And obviously you'll have a lot of database, you have loads of year of experience on your side. All these things help, a particular research guy from a big buy side firm. These data tools, processes, systems, access to the sell side, those things help. But as far as any private information and any advantage over and above a typical retail guy in terms of, because there's no dearth of information or news flow. And now the regulation also suggests that every interaction which any publicly listed company does to any sell side or buy side, it has to be uploaded on the BSE or NSE website. So it has to become public. So there is no advantage on the public information side, but yes, you can do a differentiated research, more in-depth research, and that can be your edge along with the system and processes that you have.
So it is like how you deduce that information.
Absolutely, you distill that information
and take a view.
Stock ideas, yes.
And take a view out of it.
Yes, sir.
These couple of terms you are using, which people normally may not understand. The buy side analyst and sell side analyst. Okay. So
yeah.
In simple terms, if you can explain that.
So sell side are these brokerages, right? You might have heard of JP Morgan or Kotak Securities, IF, and there are so many good brokerages. They sell research, and the institutions which buy research include mutual fund, insurance company, and nowadays the PMSs, the foreign institutional investors, because they buy their research for the decision making, for the investment. They are called the buy side, and those who does the research only as an advisory, not to invest themselves, but as an advisory, and they sell the research and get commission out of it. That is called sell side. So that is the basic difference. The brokers and the insurance mutual fund PMS, as two separate entities.
Indeed. Okay. Well, and say like, what is the difference between a retail guy doing his own research and a fund house like Nippon? When they do the research, what is the difference generally? Just this question, I mean, maybe very dumb question. I am asking.
No, sir. I mean, it's a good question.
Yeah, I am asking because the retail investors should understand the difference. What is the thing that your professionalism that you are bringing in?
The most important thing is, and I admit that there's no dearth of information, news flow, talent. So it is a level playing field in that sense. If someone as a retail investor is doing a full-time job, he can or she can do a good job out of it. However, most retail cannot do this as a full-time job, and investing in research is a full-time job. Now, there also the big difference come, doing research versus a retail analyst or retail investor is that we believe in research excellence and teamwork, and it's a very large team. Everything is segregated in terms of the coverage universe, the expertise of of the research analyst, where an average analyst in my team, for example, has more than 12 years of experience. So we have a dedicated team covering large caps, mid caps, small caps, and that's where the specialization comes. So more specialization, more differentiation in terms of better focus, more in-depth research, and that's what gets reflected in terms of the output, identifying the price value gap better, and that's what gets communicated to the fund managers in a more refined form, and that's where it makes a little difference. So more focus, more system, more resource availability at the disposal. And as I said, it cannot be a part-time job. So the specialization, teamwork, and full-time nature of a buy-side research makes a difference versus a sell-side gap.
True, 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 true. Yeah, and in general, the factors, say like when you put up, probably how, if I may ask you, how many stocks are under your universe in equity?
Sir, we have probably the largest coverage under the entire sell side and buy side put together. We have 520 companies under our active coverage. We don't have a concept of soft coverage or something. These are the companies for which we maintain models for the next 4 years of estimate. And we have recommendation views, very high research compliance on all 520 companies across size and sectors. So we would cover around 100 large caps, 150 mid caps, and the rest would be small caps. So very, very, very large coverage that we have. In my view, and I can't be 100% sure about it, but this could be possibly be the largest coverage by any research outfit in the country.
True, true. Whenever I talk to some other fund houses, they say we cover like 300 or 350,
Yeah.
400 stocks. 520 is a fantastic universe generally. So when you cover out of 520 stocks, you will be recommending for purchase.
Yes, sir.
So let me go more from a positive angle than from a negative angle, sell side, selling. So for buying, because people are interested in buying. So,
yes. Absolutely.
So when you recommend to buy, what are the factors that you look, and when you take a strong view that, okay, this stock could be bought. So what are the factors, or you might have a model which encompasses your things. So what are those things?
Basically, it has to have an upside, a reasonable upside. It's not 5-10%, but a longer term, much more upside in accordance with the mandate. So whom you are recommending to? Are you recommending to a small cap fund manager for whom the liquidity is a bigger challenge? So you need to have significantly higher upside if you are recommending a small cap stock versus a large cap stock where liquidity is more benign. So that is one part. Secondly, obviously, there has to be price value gap. And what I mean by this is that market, what we are trying to do is to identify mispricing, right? And mispricing happen when market overreacts, or investors overreact to a certain news flow, or many times underreact to a news flow. So timely identification of those anomalies, which only happens, not regularly, but if you do it time to time, you get those anomalies, you identify them, highlight those opportunities, and you are asking about the buy side. So in this case, if you find there is a price value gap, there is 30-40% upside, which is there as per the analyst estimates, then you highlight it to the fund manager. And this is where the fund managers care, and they clearly encourage and look forward for the long-term calls versus the short-term trading kind of calls. So this gels with our whole philosophy of having long-term orientation in all our schemes under the broader fund management template. So that gels well. So this is where this is how a research analyst would recommend his or her buy ideas.
Okay. Sometimes say like some of the fund managers, they say that we will go with only continuous compounders. So like I want I don't want say like right now cyclical is moving up.
Yeah.
So some fund managers may not want to get in and get out of, for example, the cyclical and then getting in, getting out. So some of them, even within Nippon also, they want continuous compounders. So like right. I'm going to buy a company with great management, great ability, great financials, and I'm just going to leave it as far as it is doing well. So yes, how do you identify those continuous compounders generally?
So, sir, first of all, we don't have a very straightjacket approach that we only invest in compounders. As a fund house, we look at companies where there is a cyclical tailwind, and obviously companies which are more secular in nature in terms of, as you suggested, compounders. So we are agnostic to either a deep value or only, a quality or, expensive quality kind of investing. So we are in that's an opportunistic, and as a framework, we use growth or quality at a reasonable price. I think that is where, if I may say that, we as a common approach we have. What we look for in the company, obviously, the business should have long-term potential. There should be lesser risk of disruption, right? And obviously, if it is accompanied by cyclical tailwind, nothing like it. And most importantly, we are not buying companies, we are buying stocks. So there has to be a reasonable price value gap, whatever valuation parameters is relevant for that sector. And different sector would have different valuation parameters. So we consider that. Apart from that, we obviously look at capital allocation policies of that company, the return ratios, what kind of return ratios they have. And most importantly, I think this is something which I want to highlight. We look at the past track record in terms of delivery and most importantly, the corporate governance. So we have a mechanism where we completely exclude companies which fare well in other parameters. But even if there is a hint of any malpractices or any doubt in terms of corporate governance, this is what we completely avoid. So it's a combination of growth potential, right value, good capital allocation, and right governance. So this is what we look at.
Good, good, good. And whenever the companies are in your universe, how often you revisit them? Say like talking to management or attending calls or visiting their factory, whatever it is. So how often you talk to them or monitor them, I would say. How often, in the sense every quarter or every half yearly, every year? What is the time?
Frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sir, there is a rule, and there is 100% compliance to the rule that any company that we own, and we own around 320, 330 companies across schemes, active schemes, we need to have at least one detailed interaction, either in the form of post quarterly earning communication, or there are a lot of these conferences which keep happening where management come and interact with the investors. So minimum one detailed note is required for all our investee companies, and the companies which are part of our universe, but we may not own for different reasons. There is a our in-house rule that we need to have a detailed note, at least one note every 6 months. So we ensure that with the help of our MIS, there's 100% compliance to these things. So this is a constant, regular process. Both at analyst level or fund manager level. The evaluation is a continuous process, and research hygiene is something we really take pride of, and we maintain it as 100%.
Okay, good. And say like you already told some of the parameters that I'm going to ask, but I want say like a retail investor, who is like a do-it-yourself guy.
Yes, sir.
So he wants to pick stocks himself. Just let us assume. So what would be the three parameters, top parameters that you would recommend generally for a person, for an investor, for any investor?
I would say, first of all, it should be in the right sector. You seldom make money in a sector which is dying. So you should be in the sector where there are long-term tailwinds, right?
Okay.
So the sector which is not impacted by disruption, and across sector there's a risk of disruption nowadays, right? The
True.
kind of incremental fast change that is happening on the technology side. So you need to be cognizant of that to get into the high growth areas. Identify the right management. I think ultimately, if you're a retail investor, you can't do beyond the point. You can't do a lot of research. So you should identify the right promoters, someone who's doing the proper capital allocation that you can look from the ratios like ROE, ROCs, over the long period. And more importantly, who takes care of the minority interest. For a retail investor, it is very, very important that you should not be shortchanged. So right sector at a right price, the valuation that, and now there are so many publicly available tools, you can find these data points. right capital allocation, and more importantly, the right kind of management which takes care of the minority interest. So these are the few things that you need to keep
Very
in
good.
mind.
Well said. Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
For retail investor, these are all very important parameters.
Yes.
And as we speak right now, what are the top sectors that Nifty is considering? I mean, this officially you can discuss, I suppose. The top sectors that you are great potential for the next few years in Indian context, because overall, if you take USA and all, okay, technology is there, all those things are there.
Yeah.
But in the Indian context, what are the sectors that hold great potential? And as you said, some of the sectors that are dying.
Right, sir. So let me think. I think, sir, one sector, and which is the largest sector, financials. I think it holds a great promise from 5-10 year perspective. The reason being is that if you look at last 10 years, credit to GDP, the is bank credit to GDP is at 50% and hasn't gone up. Now, if you look at any matured market and economies, what you will notice is that this ratio, bank credit to GDP, is typically around 100%, sometimes more. So there's a long way to go. Economy is going to grow at 10, 12, 13% on nominal basis, and this credit to GDP as a ratio would go up. So financial has a great future. If you look at the household balance sheet, they are relatively under leveraged in India. If you look at the private corporate balance sheet, right now they're in great shape. Probably debt equity ratio of the corporate India as such, it would be at a level last seen in FY3 or FY4. So there's tremendous scope for adding leverage for future investment, future consumption, and that would inevitably happen as the economy matures. This has happened to other economies, it will happen to us. So I think financial at a broader level sector that should do well, and there could be relative winners who adopt the technology and who have the best risk management practices, etc. I think those stocks in this particular sector might do well from a 5 to 10 year perspective.
Very good. Very good. Very good.
Yeah, and the other question you asked about the sectors to avoid. Actually, there could be many. There are risks associated with these disruption with a lot of sectors, and there's another risk. You as an investor, you need to be cognizant of, and it's an important thing is that the sector should not have any ESG overhang, which is related to any environment, social or governance related issue should not be there. So many, I would say, some of the old economy sectors where, there is probably the apparent risk of getting disrupted, just for an example, maybe a power sector, for example, conventional power versus green power. So that could be, those kind of sectors could get risk. At the same time, I think any ESG discard, and it could be sin sector or a pollutant sector. I think there, irrespective of the near-term potential, from the longer-term perspective, they should be avoided in my view.
Okay. True. And ESG is also gaining, good traction.
Absolutely.
Earlier, it was only in Europe. Now in US and India, even many funds were launched in ESG segment.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah.